I really truly want to release more videos this year in 2026. That's one of my main goals, to just expand the channel and release as much as possible. And with that means that whether I like it or not, I'm gonna have to be okay with putting out more critical reviews and critical reactions. As much as I love making this channel all about finding new bands, underrated bands, bands that are coming up in the scene that are just putting out their first stuff, because that's just what I love. I'm really only here to spread the love and the music that not nearly enough people are talking about. But in that, there are always a few artists and a few albums that come out that are super disappointing, not up to standards, and it's even more frustrating when it comes from a band that has hit such high peaks in their career. I think most of us here watching know that Soen have become one of those bands recently. I have a huge place in my heart for Soen because they were pretty much the first band in the progressive metal scene that saw me branch out of my Tool-obsessed phase and actually start expanding my taste to find all of my favorite bands today. I was so trapped in my mind about Tool just being the single greatest band ever and no one could come close to them, and so there was no point in branching out. But when I heard Soen for the first time, there was such an interesting brightness to their sound. It was something that I had never heard before. I thought it was extremely creative. The way that their sound has shifted over time is just really sad to watch, really. If you tried to play someone Soen's 3 most recent albums consecutively that had never heard of the band, and then tried to tell them they have one of the most diverse catalogs in the whole genre, and really in this whole century so far, they would really have no choice but to laugh at you, and I think that's a bit sad. Because even at the start of their career with their first album, sure, there are a lot of Tool influences in there on Cognitive, but they were really throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. And even there, I think there's much more cohesive songwriting, much more interesting songwriting than what we're getting on their 7th studio album, Reliance, which is just the simplest of the simple that we've got from them so far. Their sophomore album, Tellurian, was an even further step into the progressive realm. And then when they put out Lakaya and Lotus within a 2-year stretch from 2017 to 2019, that's where the band fully peaked. Those are 2 of the best albums that I've ever heard in the genre, and that's really what made me fall in love with the band, because Joel's soaring vocals absolutely carried the band at the time. I thought Lars and Cody's riffs were so interesting and had so much personality across the both albums. With Lakaya, you're kind of getting this Middle Eastern influence in them, which creates some very interesting chord changes and scales, and they're just sprawling in the best way possible. And then on Lotus, the production completely upgrades and you just have some of the tightest writing anywhere in the genre. But not only do you get these super heavy moments, you also get some of my favorite ballads of all time, songs like Lucidity, Paragon, Lotus, and albums that just had me so excited for the future of this band until Imperial came out, which is when they started to kind of go down this more commercial road and follow this very same formula that they're still writing songs under to this day. And it was a conflicting album for me because it was still very clearly Soen, but I couldn't really figure out what had changed that made it so much less interesting. Really, it just became less progressive. All the odd time signatures were completely gone, and it was a much more mechanical form of production and mixing that made the sonic experience kind of harder to listen to, even though it was more polished, if that makes any sense. But after Imperial, they put out the extended version of Lotus, which got me really excited, because they released 3 bonus tracks that were like, honestly, probably the most progressive songs they ever put out. The second single of those, Thurifer, is still my favorite Soen song to this date. So that got me really excited that Imperial just kind of took the back seat for that album, because it came out in 2021, a very polarizing time in the world, and they had completely transitioned from their previous material talking all about the church to songs that were very political and very powerful, really. The lyrics had fully taken a front stage, and I thought maybe they were simplifying their sound just to try to reach the masses a little bit more and get this message out. And I was cool with that, because when I heard those bonus tracks, I thought that they were back to their progressive best. And then 2023 came around and they released Memorial, and it was just Imperial 2.0, but so much more boring. There's really nothing to take away from that album, in all honesty, bar a few songs. And I saw them on that tour. Soen will always be an amazing live band, and I thought that concert in particular was great. The material sounded really good live, but I was wondering how much longer can they go down this very same road before their fans just start to get turned off. And they've just gone and done it again. It's hard for me to have any faith in this band anymore, because Reliance is so watered down. It really is just like, once you get to water, you can't water down water anymore. So from this point forward, when you keep getting more and more simple, more and more boring, and rerunning the same formula, how much longer can you do that until you're genuinely re-releasing the same song point for point? Because when you compare certain songs on this album, and the sections to Songs on Memorial, it's unbelievable how similar they are. It's like they lost all confidence in their songwriting.
Standing on the edge, wondering the unknown, and for once, escape from the hollow. We can stand and hold every cloud by ourselves. With every step we take, we get further away. Even if I can see
And honestly, I think the most frustrating part of this whole album is that there are 2 or 3 songs on here that are actually pretty interesting. They have a couple surprises in there, which is something I didn't think I would say, which shows just, I really didn't have expectations for this album. But the third single, Discordia, apart from the chorus, which is something we'll get onto later, this chorus formula has to stop. But the rest of the song, the way the breakdown came in, the interesting guitar tone, the kind of subdued verses that have really Martin's only interesting drumming on the whole album. And then that piano solo, or rather the keyboard solo during the bridge, such an interesting song, and I thought that was a step in the right direction. And then you got some of the ballads near the end, and Different is an incredibly composed song, and it's one of the only good examples of just how incredible of a vocalist Joel really is on this album. All the other songs either consist of him shouting at you the whole time or whispering. There's absolutely no dynamic variation in his voice, which is something that he had before. And that's the whole problem with this album, is being able to compare it to the old albums, because if you take this on the surface level, you think of someone, maybe an old Metallica fan, trying to find some newer material, and then they stumble upon this album. Nothing here is inherently bad, and it would probably be some of the most interesting music they'd heard in a long time. But you see them go back into their discography, and they would just go, what the hell happened? And what were they before? They were just throwing everything out there. It's just so frustrating because, again, I can't stress enough, how much longer can you go down this road? You really can't. They've already recycled 70-80% of entire songs. You take at least 7 songs on here: Primal, Mercenary, Discordia, Axis, Huntress, Unbound, Drifter, and Draconian. That's 8 songs that have almost identical choruses. You listen to any of them, it's the same structure, it's the same rhythms on the kick, the exact same delivery from Joel. And you get to this point when you want to make all this powerful, inspiring music to motivate marches and movements and political uprisings, and you think you want to make music like this, but if you keep releasing the same goddamn thing every single time, then how does it stay powerful or relevant? It doesn't. It just gets watered down, and it makes me want to do the opposite of go uprise in the streets. It makes me want to just go on to the next song. I think the closing track, Velikor, if that's how you say it, is probably the most interesting song on the album, and that's the one that got me the most frustrated because it showed lots of songwriting inspiration from Lakaya, and I just wonder, if you are able to write songs that are interesting still, or at least have some inspiration, then why not do it on all the songs in the album? I don't understand why there is so much, whether it's external or internal pressure, to just release the same thing over and over. It just doesn't work, and then you get these little pockets where you're like, they still have it, so why not just keep it going? You then listen to them describing this album online. There are all kinds of interviews with Joel and Martin talking about the album, and they're talking like they completely outdid themselves here, saying that this is the freshest they've been, the most interesting riff writing, guitar solos, the most inspired they've been in years, and just like they're completely turning a page. None of that's happening. When I listen to them talking like that, it makes me think of that one clip from Cheech and Chong where that dude's talking about his band and like the width of what they play.
Hey, I hope the drums don't mess up your upholstery, man.
Nah, I'm in a band too, man.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I'm a lead singer, man.
Ah, that's it.
Yeah, we play everything from like Santana to El Chicano, man. You know, like everything.
Yeah, it just is uninspired, and I don't know what they're trying to prove or who they're trying to convince by saying this is their most creative music in years, because it's just not. I can't call this progressive metal anymore, and they're still getting thrown around on progressive metal playlists, archives. It really is just not prog. This is to progressive metal what Milk is to hot sauce. I really don't want to rub salt in the wounds here because this is still a band I love and we will always have their older albums to look back on, but I don't have any faith in these guys turning around their form and writing more inspired music ever again. I don't think I'll ever have interest in seeing them live again, as good as they are. I don't know if I'll ever do a reaction video for them again as well. I'm just praying that they somehow, because they are getting bigger, obviously. More commercial songs means that they're expanding their audience, but I hope that their new audience is encouraged to go back and listen to their older stuff and ask the same questions as to why they just kind of gave up on such an interesting path. Because there are still crowd favorites on albums like Lotus and Tellurian that they play live, and it's such a crazy contrast. I don't know. I hope questions are answered one day, because this unfortunately is a band that's just fallen into sameness over time. Let me know what you guys thought of this album and how it compares to the rest of their discography in your eyes. Let me know if you were excited about this or as disappointed as I was. I think that's about all I have to say. I will see you guys next time.